From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Thank you very much, Holly. Welcome to Monday's programme. It is the 5th of August 2019. Hope you had a lovely weekend. It's been a mixed old bag here in Greater Manchester today. It's been warm, it's been wet as well, licorice all sorts. Tweet the programme between now and the end of it. It's the usual Twitter handle, at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. At Richie Allen Show on Twitter. I look forward to hearing from you today.
Richie Allen.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Welcome to the programme. Going to spend quite a bit of time this afternoon talking about the shootings over the weekend in the United States, in El Paso, in Texas, and in Dayton, Ohio. So we're going to do that. And I do want your opinions. And I'm going to spend quite a bit of time going back to Twitter to read your comments, whatever they are. So tweet at Richie Allen Show. Later on in the programme, the co-founder of LiveLeak.com, the broadcaster and commentator Hayden Hewitt joins the programme. Great friend of mine, of course. And we're going to talk about the implications for websites, but not only websites, but forums that discuss politics, where people might post their opinions, extreme or otherwise, and might even post manifestos before embarking on shooting sprees. So we're going to talk about that with Hayden Hewitt in the second hour. We'll broaden that right out, okay? Because it's very important. This is because Cloudflare, which is a firm that provides added security for websites, has withdrawn its support for 8chan this morning, because 8chan has been accused of celebrating mass shootings and spreading hate. So we'll talk about that with Hayden Hewitt in the second hour. And I hope to have comment this hour from the US on the shootings. I invited Jim Fetzer onto the programme, but there might have been a time mix-up, and that time mix-up might have been my fault. We'll see how it goes anyway. It's a live programme. I might have miscounted by an hour in terms of where Jim is. But look, we'll work it out one way or the other. I want to get a lot of comment on this, so please do drop those tweets to at Richie Allen Show. I look forward to hearing from you, whatever your opinion is. Okay, whatever it is. Like I said before, I've got my own strong opinions about truthers and their conduct when things like this happens. When things like these happen, I should say. But it's just my opinion. So feel free, don't be cowed by my strong opinions. Tell me what you're thinking. It's at Richie Allen Show. 29 people died in mass shootings in Texas and Ohio over the weekend. Connor Betts was shot dead by police in Dayton, Ohio. He's allegedly shot dead 9 people and injured more. And Patrick Crusius is in custody in Texas, in El Paso. He apparently went to Walmart and shot 20 people dead and injured many more as well. And as I mentioned, the far right, the alleged far right, I don't understand, you see. Right? I'm not going to keep repeating what I am, because all I am is a guy who asks questions. Okay? I think I'm an old socialist, but that's about the size of it. I have no time for far left, far right, for centre. It's all nonsense to me. Right. So they've called 8chan far right. I've never spent so much as a second browsing that platform. Right? I don't know what it is. Hayden Hewitt's is going to dig down into this with me in the second hour. And it's been forced offline, 8chan, because for the third time in a year, somebody's posted a manifesto there and then embarked on a shooting spree, allegedly. Okay. Cloudflare has said, right, we will not be protecting 8chan anymore from 8 o'clock this morning UK time. Right. The 21-year-old guy, Patrick Crusius, is supposed to have used 8chan, as I said, right, the manifesto. Here's Donald Trump, the President of the United States, addressing the media a very short time ago. You would have heard a short clip of this on the news. Here's the crux of what Donald Trump had to say about the shootings and why they happened.
In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart and devours the soul. We have asked the FBI to identify all further resources they need to investigate and disrupt hate crimes and domestic terrorism, whatever they need. We must recognize that the internet has provided a dangerous avenue to radicalize disturbed minds and perform demented acts. We must shine light on the dark recesses of the internet and stop mass murders before they start. Cultural change is hard, but each of us can choose to build a culture that celebrates the inherent worth and dignity of every human life. That's what we have to do. We must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals who may commit acts of violence and make sure those people not only get treatment, but when necessary, involuntary confinement. Mental illness and hatred pulls the trigger, not the gun.
And that's incredibly creepy on so many levels. That's US President Donald Trump. Shall we go through that again very quickly? Yeah, let's do that.
In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart, and devours the soul.
How do you legislate for hate? Racism has no place in any decent society. That's true. We shouldn't allow... We shouldn't tolerate racism. That doesn't mean we should send people into exile because they have racist ideas. We should challenge their racist ideas. Whatever way it manifests itself, challenge it. Get it out into the open and debate, challenge. Racism, genuine racism, yes. Bigotry, yes. You can challenge it and deal with it. And you'd prefer to live in a city, in a village, in a street where there weren't bigoted or prejudiced or racist people. But there are, not many, but there are people everywhere who have these ideas. The best way to deal with them is not to marginalise, not to send into exile, not to paint with a big brush that this person, should be left alone. Don't deal with this person. Don't employ them. Don't speak to them. Isolate them. No, that's not good. Challenge, speak, debate. That's what I would say. But that's for hatred. How do you legislate for hatred? That's a very broad thing. We've got to deal with hatred. It's a word that has become ever present in our lexicon. It is never off the news. It's never off the newspapers. Hatred, hatred, hatred. What does it mean exactly? Hatred. We've got to root out hatred. What does that mean? Right? Trump is going down. Trump supporters who listen to this program won't like this, but this is very progressive by Donald Trump. Right? Hatred. You have to stop hatred. Hatred, right.
We have asked the FBI to identify all further resources they need to investigate and disrupt hate crimes.
Hate crimes. Hate crimes. A crime is a crime, full stop. What does hate crime mean?
And domestic terrorism, whatever they need. We must recognize that the internet has provided a dangerous avenue to radicalize disturbed minds and perform demented acts. We must shine light on the dark recesses of the internet and stop mass murders before they start.
Stop mass murders before they start. So we must have access, basically, to everybody's social media usage, to their data, to their private messages if we want to, because we've got to be able to prevent mass murders happening before they actually happen, before the guy gets the gun and embarks on his killing spree. This is the solution. It's why Ike has been saying for years, problem, reaction, solution. The problem, guy gets a gun and decides that he's going to kill a few migrants because he's pissed off. Terrible thing. The reaction, oh my God, we need to be protected. The solution. The solution is, well, we need total lockdown of what it is you do online, when you do it, how you do it, and we'll give the FBI every resource that they need. We'll tear up right? We'll tear up civil rights laws and rule books. Forget about that. We'll spy on you 24/7 effectively. That's what he's saying here. To get rid of hate crime. Got to stop hate crime. Hate crime, you see.
Cultural change is hard, but each of us can choose to build a culture that celebrates the inherent worth and dignity of every human life. That's what we have to do. We must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals who may commit acts of violence and make sure those people not only get treatment, but when necessary, involuntary confinement. Mental illness and hatred pulls the trigger, not the gun.
Mental illness and hatred pulls the trigger. Hatred pulls the trigger. That's Donald Trump earlier on. Right, let's broaden this out a bit. Lots of tweets coming in. I'll get to them in a minute. It's the Richie Allen Show live at 14 minutes past the hour for Monday, August 5th, 2019. That was Trump. So the rhetoric used by politicians, the chosen words, the phraseology, that's all up for debate today. A raft of celebrities, as I mentioned this morning on the newspaper review show, a raft of celebrities and others have come out and said that Donald Trump's racist rhetoric inspires people to kill. So what examples have the celebrities given and the social commentators, the left-wing commentators? Well, they have said that when Trump uses rhetoric like swarm of migrants, for example, and infiltration and infestation, those are weaponized words, and the unhinged might hear those words and might think that they've got license then to do what they think is necessary to take back their country and rid their country of migrants. So Sky News had a couple of commentators on this afternoon, two former political aides. One, a guy called Roger Fisk, who was a former aide to John Kerry, and a guy called Hal Lambert, who used to work for Ted Cruz. Here's Hal Lambert with the Republican point of view talking about the rhetoric.
Well, right. Obviously, these are tragic events. And I certainly don't think President Trump's immigration stance has anything to do with what happened. In fact, if you look at Dayton, Ohio, the shooter up there is far left, was an Elizabeth Warren supporter. So you can't say that one versus the other and choose one to say that President Trump was at fault on this with his rhetoric. And in fact, the shooter in El Paso, who was obviously racist and anti-Hispanic, said he had these views for many, many years, long before President Trump was elected president or came onto the scene. So I don't think it's fair to try to blame any kind of rhetoric on this. These are delusional individuals, typically loners. They have broken families. The shooter in El Paso, I believe it said his father is a drug addict for 40 years. So you're talking about really isolated individuals that are probably mentally ill. We obviously won't know until there's a further investigation on the El Paso shooter. The Dayton, Ohio shooter was killed. So, but I think if you look at their backgrounds, you're going to find a very similar aspect of their backgrounds in growing up.
Right. So that was the conservative point of view, or the Republican point of view, from a guy called Hal Lambert. Let's hear what the former aide to John Kerry, Roger Fisk, says in response to that.
When you can go through the notes or the manifestos or the social media posts from these individuals and find in full cloth whole sentences from the president, I think it introduces a series of very disturbing questions. The other thing about this is, whenever anyone, especially when a public leader comes out and says, we've got to look at our mental health system, what that means is the shooter was white. As soon as we go to mental health, that means the shooter was white. I think it's safe to say, if the shooter was, for example, a Muslim or an African American, that the president's response would have been much different. He would have been on TV within hours yesterday, following up with a lot of the same rhetoric that we've heard from him for quite some time. There's a very interesting thing that happens to him when these things happen. He seems to be very, very uncomfortable in the role of consoler-in-chief. I think he's much more comfortable being president of his United base rather than president of the United States. And I think back, this goes all the way back to when another Trump supporter sent pipe bombs to literally a laundry list of the people that the president criticizes President Obama, President Clinton, Maxine Waters, etc. This person just literally went through and A, B, C, D, and E and sent pipe bombs to the very people that this president criticizes. So I think it introduces a whole set of very disturbing questions. And I'll end here. There's always the fringes in every society, right? But when the center, or even the center right, starts to move so far right that those fringes get closer and closer to the center, it starts to create a much more favorable context where people start to think that their extreme beliefs are actually not too far from the center. So why not go act on them? And that's where I think we are.
Yeah, former aide to John Kerry there, a guy called Roger Fisk. Right. Keep the tweets coming in. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Now, last night I had an email from a lady called Greta Kosu. I think it's Kosu, Greta. Forgive me if I've mispronounced your surname there. It's not deliberate. C-O-S-U, Kosu or Kosu. Greta wrote this to me yesterday. I'm going to read it all. And I did mention this morning that I wouldn't respond to it in the interest of just putting it out there. But there are one or two things I need to respond to in there. I'm going to read it all anyway. So this was in response to me talking about the shootings yesterday morning on Sunday View. So it was a very blunt email. No, good morning, Richie. How you doing? None of that. It's okay. That's okay. So the email went like this. Okay, Richie, this morning you've gone too far for me. I am a citizen of the US and have been around for every mass shooting since Columbine in 1995. My friend and business partner for over 25 years was gunned down at a country music concert in Las Vegas 2 years ago. I'm going to visit his grave this weekend on my birthday. I could go on and on about how these things happen and all of the contributing factors, but I have to say, you are more swayed by someone's individual assertions about the possibility of some dark theory rather than dealing with the complexity of facts that surround these problems. But I can tell you one thing. If you repeatedly tell the broadest range of citizens that another group is the cause of your problems, and then lump those problems into a wide range of any misfortune that comes your way, and then stoke that fear repeatedly, and have your government act in your name in the most violent of ways, it's not very hard to see the connection between someone who is unstable and feels they have been victimized in ways outlined in that rhetoric, who has access to the most lethal firearms, to decide they must do something. My friend died of a shot to his chest in the arms of his buddy that October night for one reason, because an unstable man with a clear history had access to loads of firepower and felt the system was screwing him over and that he was justified in taking action. Your trafficking in defence of rhetoric and defending sponsors of sites who allow the most extreme ideas to be pollinated and stoked is just shocking, Richie. If you are such a free speech promoter, then why don't you object to sites that post pedophilia? These sites, of course, give a venue to the most perverted deviates in our society, whose action destroy lives. Tell me, what is the difference between those sites and the sites who would give cover to vile ideas that have demonstrably resulted in the deaths of dozens of people? You need to do some thinking, Richie. These are dangerous times with people in increasingly desperate situations. What will you do when some unstable person who becomes attracted to these ideas through your promotion takes it to an extreme that ends in violence? What will you do, Richie, when some unstable person who becomes attracted to these ideas through your promotion takes it to an extreme that ends in violence? Now, Greta didn't write that twice. I'm just reading that again, because I'll come back to that in a minute. So she finishes then by saying, will you do some searching in your soul at that point? Will you then be forced to admit that not all ideas are equal? I'm not one for censorship, but I am for taking responsibility for the narratives I spread to people. You need to do some thinking, man. Greta Kosu. Thanks, Greta, for the email. I really appreciate that. Email the programme through the website richieallen.co.uk. So the dark theory that Greta talks about in the mail, I would ask Greta, did you listen to the broadcast yesterday or just the bits that annoyed you? Because I haven't promoted a single theory about the shooting other than this. And I'll say it again. for other people who listen to this and don't listen to it without prejudice. Listen without prejudice. Reserve your prejudice until I've finished. But until I've finished, listen to what I'm saying. I've promoted no theories. I've asked, and I've said, there will be no attempt by the media to investigate this shooting. There won't be. And I feel pretty safe in that assertion. I'm pretty safe in saying that. There'll be no investigation. None. There'll be no questions asked by the media. None. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean that I'm a member of the truth or industrial complex and that I'm suggesting that it didn't happen or any of that nonsense. I'm not suggesting that. I've never suggested that. I'm the biggest opponent of that sort of carry on. I advised my listeners not to fall victims, not to be taken in by those who push these theories before the gunpowder has evaporated. That's what I say. I said the state would use the deaths of the people in Dayton and El Paso to demand more and more surveillance of people online. That's what I said yesterday. I said that will be the upshot. Nobody cares about the victims of these shootings. I'm genuinely sorry to hear about your friend, Greta. I don't know what that's like. It must be dreadful. But has anybody really tried to find out what happened to your friend and why he died? No. No. Politicians espouse empty rhetoric, make empty promises, and do nothing. The news media asks no questions, they do nothing, and then we move on to the next one. That's how it works. I asked the question. I asked, and I ask again today, and you obviously think it is, Greta. Is it possible to be radicalised by the words of conservative politicians who use phrases like swarm and invasion? Is it? I posed the question. I expressed some doubt because I said maybe a well man or a well woman, whatever they felt about migrants, wouldn't pick up a machine gun and go to a supermarket and open fire. Nobody in their right mind would do that. So I don't deal in absolutes. I didn't say this happened or that happened. I'm a journalist. I have questions. I said the manifesto posted on 8chan is lovely and neat, I said. And I mean that. I meant it yesterday. I mean it today. Now that either means something or means nothing. That's up to the listener. What does it mean? The manifesto is lovely and neat and it's nice and handy. It means something. It means nothing. What it means is the media takes the manifesto given to it by the police and rewrites it into a story and a narrative. Patrick Crusius went mad because he was on the far right and he was radicalised. White supremacist, and he went mad. He's fed up of all the immigration and he eventually lost it, posted his manifesto, went on his merry way. That's not good enough for me as a journalist. Now, I'm not saying that didn't happen. Maybe Patrick Crusius was driven into a frenzy by his peers talking about migrants and swarms and dirty bastards coming into our country and all of that. Maybe. I don't know otherwise. Maybe he posted the manifesto, maybe he slung the rifle over his shoulder, and maybe he went to Walmart. I never said he didn't. But where's the journalism? Police say, here's the manifesto, guys. Crack on. Right? And the media says, no problem, game over. Thank you. And we will stand 50 yards away from the scene. We will look very sombre. We will inject bucket loads of pathos into our reporting, into our reports. We will talk about hate speech, and we will talk about racism and how it needs to be stopped and stamped out, and we're a multicultural society and we won't put up with this, and hatred will never win, and all that fucking crap, Greta. And I'm not swearing at you, by the way, Greta, I'm not. Right? And that's reporting in 2019. But maybe somebody put him up to it. Patrick Crusius. Maybe he was put up to it. Maybe he did it against his will, maybe. Is that far-fetched? Maybe it is. And I'm not for a minute saying that is what happened. I don't know. The lad had a few parking tickets. Or was that the lad in Dayton, Ohio, maybe? One of them anyway, right? Few parking tickets. Suddenly turns into a deranged madman. And I'd like a little bit more investigation, please. You know? And I clearly stated that yesterday. And you asked me, Greta, and I quote, you asked me, what will you do when some unstable person who becomes attracted to these ideas through your promotion takes it to an extreme that ends in violence? That's a bit unfair, that. That's suggesting that I'm sitting here in some sort of bully pulpit and I'm screaming at people and telling people about migrants. I don't talk about migrants. I don't talk about people in any way that could be construed as me blaming any one group of people for the problems we have in society. I totally reject that narrative. In fact, I go out of my way on a nightly basis to try to explain to people that we are being played like fiddles in a divide and conquer agenda. The dark-skinned man across the street from you, whose parents are from Pakistan or India or Sierra Leone, he's not the reason why you don't have a job. He's not the reason why you can't pay your bills. It's ridiculous. I've said it 1,000 times. The migrants in Southern Europe that the far right like to make tweets about all the time, alleging that they're violent and that they're aggressive. Those people were doing fine and dandy, thank you very much, until we created terrorist groups like ISIS, funded them, armed them, and let them loose on Syria and Libya and Iraq and Afghanistan. So I don't promote anything. I don't promote blame politics. Every single human being on planet Earth, no matter what your religious persuasion, no matter what your skin colour is, we're all under the same jackboot. Doesn't matter whether you're Jewish, doesn't matter whether you're a Hindu, whether you're a Sikh, whether you're a Catholic, it matters not. And this agenda is working brilliantly, as I've said 1,000 times in the last week, to instill in each and every one of us the notion that we are uniquely under the jackboot. This is divide and conquer. This is identity politics. Uniquely. It's just us. It's just my group. It's just my identity group. It's crazy. Preposterous to ask me what will I do when an unstable person does something bad because of my promotion. I don't promote anything. I ask my audience to think for themselves. I allow people on to the programme who've got interesting things to say, who wouldn't otherwise get a platform to say those things. And I ask them some questions. But promoting, there is no more anti-violent person than me. I preach non-violent civil disobedience. That's what I preach. Not violence. Don't take up guns. Don't take up baseball bats. Don't fight people. Don't blame the other. Stop looking across the street for the people to blame for the predicament that you're in, because it's not his fault. I don't care where he's from. And if your town, if your village, if your parish has had an influx of migrants, economic or otherwise, and if it has caused a burden on public services there, it is not the fucking migrants' fault. It isn't. It is not his fault or his family's. He's a human being who took advantage of a decision made by politicians to take his family somewhere where he had a better chance at making a few bob and raising his kids. That's all he is. I've been saying that for years. Nobody's going to be weaponised or radicalised by anything I say. They hate me on both sides of the political divide equally. The left hate me, the right hate me just as much. It's not that they hate me, but they despise the fact that I won't come down on any one side because it's all an illusion. There is no choice. There's no such thing as choice. What happened in Dayton, Ohio and in Texas, I have no idea. People were shot to death, and that is a tragedy. It is horrendous to me, the notion that you could go out for a few beers, the future Mrs. Allen, few games of pool, meet your pals, go and get a steak somewhere, and some fucking lunatic comes in the door with a semi-automatic weapon. Absolutely horrendous to me, that notion. But don't allow the mainstream media off the hook, nor the independent media off the hook by painting broad strokes. Yeah, it was Patrick Crusius, 21, he put a manifesto online, he was a bit mad and he was a bit racist, there you go, job done. No, it's not done, is what I would say. And I don't aim that at you, Greta, at all. Thanks very much for your email, I really appreciate it. You make a very good point about free speech as well, when it comes to websites that host indecent images of children or worse. What I would say to that is, of course I don't agree with websites hosting child porn. It is right and proper that hosting indecent images of children or videos is despicable and is against the law. It's against the law. That's disgusting. A child has been abused horribly and somebody has filmed it and put it on the fucking internet. There's nothing worse than that. That's not comparable to some guys using 8chan or a Tor browser talking about whether it's, you know, swarms of migrants or weaponized migration or whatever the bloody hell. You know, bad ideas, Greta. Bad ideas. Dreadful ideas. Still have a place in our discourse. They must have, because the person with the bad idea is a living, breathing, sentient human being who has the right to be fucking wrong. Even badly wrong. Even dreadfully badly wrong. You know? That's what I would say. Alrighty. We'll leave that there. Do email me through the website or at richie@richieallen.co.uk. If you've got a bone of contention to pick with me, I'll be happy to read your email out. And, you know, when I'm wrong, I'll be the first guy to put my hands up, you know? Right. I'll put my hands up. So there you go. Alex tweets, Richie, I seriously doubt that anyone would be radicalised by racist rhetoric from politicians. But then I don't know how the minds of sick people work. Except my own sick mind, of course. Sharon Gale, of course, is well known to my listeners, says, I like a lady that tells it how it is, right or wrong. That's how she feels, so hats off. Psychotropic drugs may have played a role, but I do understand Greta's position. And then she goes on to say, hang on here, you do not promote this, but this lady is rightly highly sensitive due to her own experience and her friend being shot in Las Vegas 2 years ago. Of course, and I couldn't be anything but sensitive to that. You know, I don't know anything about, I've never had to deal with anything like that, and please God, if there is a God, I never will have to deal with anything like that. I hear you loud and clear. Totally respect Greta's point of view, but I don't promote anything. I put a series of possibilities out there, and that's about the size of it. I want you to listen to something just before we move on. I was due to have Jim Fetzer on, but I've messed up, you know. I've messed properly up because I gave Jim the wrong time. Thinking Eastern time when in fact it's Central time, and I've messed up. I've tried to get in touch with him before the programme today, but I think he's doing something else because he's got an interesting take on this, Jim. Not necessarily the take you'd expect him to have on this, you know, in terms of the things he said before. And I wanted him to come on today, but I messed up badly. So I'm going to go another direction, and this is going to run all week anyway, and I will try and make time for Jim on tomorrow's programme. Dean Henderson's got a brand new book out. I've been reading it, and I'm looking forward to speaking with Dean on the programme tomorrow about that. Great guy, hendersonlefthook.wordpress.com. Tell you what, before we do the next little bit of news, let's have a break, eh? Let's have a musical break. At the time is 23 minutes or thereabouts to the top of the hour. Here's music from Stevie Wonder and a song called Part-Time Lover on the Richie Allen Show. Good to be with you. At Richie Allen Show is the Twitter handle. Don't forget, later on in the programme, Hayden Hewitt joins me, and we'll broaden out some of the talking points that have come out of these shootings. Hayden Hewitt in the second hour. Stevie Wonder back in 2. Well, anybody who's going on holiday tomorrow and who might be flying out of Heathrow Airport, there's some good news for you. Oh yeah, the strike that was due to take place at Heathrow Airport tomorrow has been cancelled because the union have reached a deal with the airport over workers' pay. So there will be sighs of relief across the south of the country today. Nothing worse than that if you have holidays booked. I mean, there isn't anything worse. You know, your holiday should be a stress-free time where you charge your bloody batteries and you relax, and then you find out that industrial action is going to take place and that your flights might be cancelled and all the madness of that. So apparently a deal has been reached between the airport and the union over workers' pay, and the strike action has been averted. Isn't that good? I hope I made your day. You might have been heading off somewhere tomorrow and you might think, oh, that's good news. That's good news. Let's take a slightly different direction just for a minute. I'll get back to your tweets shortly. You know, we've been following the story over the last few days of the Whaley Bridge Dam in Derbyshire. This is the dam that was at collapse point, right, because of the heavy rains, this old Victorian structure, and it resulted in all of those people being evacuated from their homes lest the water breach the dam. This is Todbrook Reservoir, by the way, and it's been announced this afternoon that crews will spend 2 more days there pumping water out of the reservoir to stop the dam bursting and flooding the town underneath it. So it looks like a disaster is going to be averted there. Okay, so this is the heavy rainfall we had last week, which also saw flooding in other parts of the country, in Yorkshire particularly. Now what's interesting about that is the climate change evangelists, let's call them what they are, evangelists, wasted no time whatsoever in claiming that these events, the flooding in Yorkshire and the Whaley Bridge Dam near catastrophe, are basically a symptom of climate change, man-made climate change, because they believe, of course, that man-made CO2 is contributing to global warming. This in turn is affecting the weather, making the weather more extreme, cold and heat extremes that we never saw before, apparently, and all of that. And they take any weather event, anyone at all, anything we experience, bit hot, bit of a heat wave, climate change, very, very heavy rainfall, climate change, and so on. Kay Burley this afternoon, Kay Burley. We can't go more than 2 or 3 days without a fix of Kay, can we? Kay Burley had a man on today. She had a man on. And his name is Professor even Richard Dawson. And he is a professor at Earth System Engineering. That's Earth System Engineering. Right? Right. Richard Dawson. He's a professor. And he's on to talk about extreme weather. So I think, because I edited this quite a while ago, because it was early in the afternoon, I think Burley asks him about the structure of the Whaley Bridge Dam and the fact that we have to worry about these structures because climate change is getting more apparent. You'll hear Burley's question, then you'll hear his answers.
We have ageing Victorian infrastructure here in the United Kingdom. How is it going to cope with these weather events?
Well, we're going to see increased frequency of these sorts of events. We've seen extremes of heat waves and extremes of flooding, as you have pointed out. With our ageing infrastructure, we're going to have to do far more to prepare it for these sorts of extremes. And we can't continue to rely on our excellent emergency services and military to protect all of our properties from these sorts of extreme events in the future.
So, I mean, we were talking in the office earlier on today, which is why we gave you a call about what's happening at Whaley Bridge and the fact that that reservoir, that dam wall has basically disintegrated. I'm guessing that there are lots of other places around the country that the engineers are going to have to go and have a look at now.
I'm sure they will. And it's too early to say exactly what the causes of the issues in Whaley Bridge are and what they've been. And I'm sure we'll learn a lot from those forensic investigations. But we do know that we have a number of other ageing assets around the country. We saw a bridge in Grinton in Yorkshire fall apart as well last week. And it's going to be a lot, I think, of investigating, inspecting, and hopefully investing in preparing these infrastructures for future extreme events.
So we got to find these infrastructures that are crumbling and I suppose provide some support to them, get to the foundations, whatever you've got to do to make them more solid than they are now. Burley's next question is a real beauty.
Extreme event.
Professor, I was in the Alps a couple of weeks ago.
She was in the Alps, Kay. She has some life, Kay Burley. She was on safari back in March. A couple of weeks ago, she was in the Alps. Kay Burley. The salary of a Sky News presenter, eh? Anyway, she was in the Alps. What did Kay observe when she was in the Alps?
And the permafrost is melting, and as a result, the mountains are basically melting in front of...
The mountains are melting.
in front of people's very eyes. It was 2 degrees centigrade on top of Mont Blanc. It's never supposed to get above freezing. I talked about...
It's never supposed to get above freezing on Mont Blanc. That is, you could fertilise every field in the country with that horse shit right there. Nonsense. That it's never supposed to get above freezing on Mont Blanc. What a load of crap, right? Did you ever hear of the summer, love? Did you ever hear of the summer, you daft ginger ninja? The summer, love, where it does get above freezing on Mont Blanc. Anyway, here she goes. Climate denial.
I talked about it on Twitter. There are still climate change deniers, let's say. What
Let's say.
you say in response?
Climate change deniers, eh? There's a phrase you're going to hear a lot of now in the coming 6 to 8 to 12 months. Climate change deniers. Well, you won't be surprised the professor agrees with Kay.
Well, I think we're seeing the evidence unfold in front of our very eyes. We have gone from the hot...
We're seeing the weather. It rains sometimes. Sometimes it rains very, very hard. And sometimes it rains very hard and villages at the bottom of hills get fucking flooded as a result of it because of where the houses are. Villages and houses in valleys or in depressions, right? Right in the middle of roads that are rising out on either side of where they are, right? Or hills rising up on either side, they get flooded when you get torrential rain. 'Twas ever thus. It's not new. It's not new. It's really starting to get on my now, right?
They recorded in England to some of these extreme flood events, infrastructure collapsing. I just don't think there's an argument to be had anymore. We really need to prepare ourselves to manage these risks.
Got to prepare ourselves to manage these risks. And we know what the preparation entails, doesn't it? Preparation entails drastically changing the way we live, how we travel, what we eat, what we wear, all at the whim of a few complete and utter bought and paid for pseudoscientists who don't have a scrap of evidence to support their notion that CO2 is driving climate and not the sun. These are strange times. It's 11.5 minutes to the top of the hour. Keep the tweets coming in. You're with the Richie Allen Show live on Fab Radio 2 in Manchester, in Greater Manchester, triggerwarning.tv, TuneIn Radio and richieallen.co.uk. John Parsons in Salford says, Richie, I love the Highlands, but I haven't been there for a couple of years. I hope they don't melt before I get back up there. The mountains are melting, said Kay. The mountains are melting. Gail tweets, or the idiots build on flood plains. Oh no, we're having weather today. That's right. That is right. Houses, villages, cottages, farms have been built, farmhouses in places that were pretty effing stupid places to build houses, villages, streets and farmhouses. Because they were always going to be susceptible to torrential rainfall. Like I said, 'twas ever thus. You know, floods are not new. And floods predate the Industrial Revolution. And this is true as well. But this is an inconvenient fact for the evangelists. So let's just pretend it never happened. Let's pretend that grapes were grown. Let's pretend that grapes were not grown in Yorkshire many centuries ago. Let's pretend that the Thames didn't freeze over some centuries ago. Let's pretend that didn't happen. Let's pretend it didn't happen, because that's not convenient when you're trying to convince the world that industrial activity is changing the climate. It is not. The sun drives climate on planet Earth. Nothing else. 'Twas ever thus. The sun does. Fact. Not fiction, not the meanderings, not the ramblings of a deranged baldy gammon like me, but fact. Plain and simple. That's what's driving climate. Not CO2. We are dirtying the planet. We are doing things like we are messing with the weather. We know this. It's no secret. We've even had meteorologists on this program accept that it's probably happening. We have weather patterns being accelerated by those who would experiment with the weather for whatever reason. I think that's irrefutable now. No doubt about it. We are filthying the planet in so many ways and putting animals, plants, insects at risk because we are filthying the planet. That's a real concern. We have to talk about that. But that's a totally different thing to changing the climate. We're not changing the climate. That's beyond even the most malevolent, mad genius, you know, with all the weather modification tools in the world. Changing the climate is beyond these people. And it's beyond man and man's industrial activity. 8.5 minutes to the top of the hour. Going to take a tune from Morrissey. Back in 2. Morrissey, certain people I know on the Richie Allen Show, will be joining Hayden Hewitt in Manchester in about 10 minutes' time. I'm looking forward to that. Racism is everywhere, we're told. And we are told this. We are told pretty much from the time we get up in the morning until we go to bed in the evening. And I don't think for a minute, I don't believe I'm exaggerating. We are told that racism is everywhere. We are constantly being gaslit. Am I allowed to say that in this context? Am I allowed to say that the media, in terms of the traditional media, namely, I suppose the internet now is part of the traditional media. It is for us now. And I suppose if you're in your 20s, you've never known anything but a time when the internet was here. So it is the traditional media. So you have newspapers, magazines, TV programs, radio programs. Of course, that's the basic media, traditional media. And I would say there isn't a day that goes by without you and me being told that we are living in some sort of racist society. So is that gaslighting of us? Can you use gaslighting in that context? Maybe you can. Maybe you can't. Maybe you can. Okay, let's say you can't. So we're being gaslit. We're being told, basically. We're kind of being beaten down. Kind of broken down. Kind of mentally abused. I don't mean me personally or you personally as an individual, but collectively. We're being beaten down and told that we're basically nothing but a bunch of filthy fucking racists, right? That's all we are. Whether we like it or not. Bigots. We're homophobes, we're racists. You get it every day. And I don't mean baldy white gammons like me. I'm not really a baldy white gammon. But should we be referring to people in those terms anyway? But I don't mean just white people. This isn't a charge or an accusation being levelled at white people. It's out there. We're all, whether it's Muslims, Asian folks, whether it's white Europeans, white Brits, whatever. We're all prejudiced or we're all racist in some way. There's an agenda to convince us that we're all unworthy. That deep down we have prejudices. And there are things that we need to atone for. Because you can't escape it. Because it's every day. I know I said that already. I'm going to say it again. It's every day. It's every day. And today, an anti-racism charity called Kick It Out says it's appalled. Widespread racism, widespread racism is evident in football, and that racist abuse at English Football League games is totally appalling. Now, the Kick It Out charity is a charity, and its existence depends on there being racism constantly. There's a bit of conflict of interest there, I would say. And I've said this before. Nobody wants to take this on, though. I've invited them to come on this programme, and they, short of, told me to, well, feck off. Because apparently I'm racist. We're all racist, you see. I'm anti-Semitic because I had some people on in the past that really, really don't like Jewish people. And because I gave them a platform, even though I argued with them and disagreed with them, didn't matter, so I'm anti-Semitic, right? So that's Kick It Out. Oh, we couldn't come on with you. Oh, God, no. No, we might be tainted by you being tainted by the racism of the guests you had on. It's wonderful, that, isn't it? Link in the chain. We would be tainted by the racism that you brought forth by the nature of the fact that you interviewed some people that we think are racist. This is brilliant. So Kick It Out are saying, we've just started the football season. Now, I went to Salford City on Saturday. Ah, sure, I was delighted. We beat Stevenage. Do you like that? We beat Stevenage 2-0 in the soccer, in the football, and it was a lovely start. It was a lovely day. It was gloriously hot. Went with my pal, and we loved it. Marvellous. League 2. So it's like Division 4, right? Marvellous. Great stuff. Lovely. Loads of kids there. As I imagine you would have seen at grounds all over the country the weekend we've just had. Because it's school holiday C. But apparently the racism is everywhere. Southend United striker Theo Robinson claims that he had racist abuse away at Coventry. They might have been home to Coventry, I'm not sure, but he was abused. Jamaica forward Robinson says he was abused in front of his family, friends and their kids at St Andrews. Right? Because Coventry are sharing their ground with Birmingham City. So, I was racially abused. James McLean, who's Irish, said he was racially abused. I wouldn't have thought of the Irish as a race, but anyway. Barnsley's Bambo Diaby and the sister of Fulham, Cyrus Christie, said that they were victims of unacceptable discriminatory abuse and racism is everywhere. Gotta stop it. We gotta stop it. And football teams need to stop the matches. Need to walk off. Racism, says Kick It Out, the charity. Racism is everywhere. Tell you what's interesting though. Tell you what's really interesting. And I wanted to cover this last week. Is that this particular charity, Kick It Out, won't release the findings of an independent review into its own conduct. A report that looked at the culture and the governance of the charity. The reason the report was commissioned in the first place was because staff had complained of unmerciful bullying and harassment by some of the bigwigs at this particular charity. So a report was commissioned. It has been published, or it has been prepared and it's been passed on, and Kick It Out has said, no thanks, we won't be making the report public for people to scrutinise it. And let's talk about racism, because racism is everywhere in football, when racism is not everywhere in football. It's a lie. 99 fans out of 100, or 999 fans out of 1,000 couldn't give a shite what the players look like, what their religious persuasion is, what their sexuality is. They couldn't give a damn. They're only interested in one thing: are you any good? And while they do abuse the players of the opposition team and shout things at them, I've never heard homophobic, nor have I ever heard racist abuse, and I've gone to thousands and thousands of games, not just football games either. You don't hear it. The only time I ever heard any abuse was back in 2010, it might have been, or 2009. Arsenal were playing Seville in Seville's stadium in the city of Seville, and we were living in a place called Duquesa. Well, we weren't living in Duquesa, we were living outside it. We were about 15 minutes away from Gibraltar, and we were a 2-hour drive away from Seville. So I said to the future Mrs. Allen, I said, shall we drive to Seville to watch the football? We've got tickets. And the future Mrs. Allen said, yes, let's drive to Seville. So into our old banger of a Ford Fiesta we had a Ford Fiesta at the time, and drove to Seville on 1 gallon of petrol. Yeah. And we went to see Seville, and when Bakary Sagna came out, he was playing for Arsenal at the time, and he had coloured beads in his hair. The Seville fans gave him dog's abuse, and some of them did the monkey chants in Seville. Spanish were notorious for it in the past, the old monkey chants. They did it to Thierry Henry as well. That's the only time that I've ever experienced or witnessed that sort of nonsense. It went on back in the 70s, it went on back in the 80s. People don't do it now. And this charity that will not release a report into its own conduct where bullying has been alleged that bullying and bad treatment of staff is widespread, is now telling us that we've had a glorious weekend, lovely weather, everybody kicked off, all the football teams played in the Football League, and racism is everywhere. A charity whose existence depends on finding racism, kind of finding racism everywhere. Yeah. Alrighty. Tell you what we're going to do. Going to take music from the Kinks, and then we're going to join Hayden Hewitt, who's somewhere in Manchester. Alright. This is the Richie Allen Show for Monday, August 5th, 2019. The Kinks. Ray Davies and the Kinks, Lola on the Richie Allen Show. Been listening to Americana by Ray Davies. Have you listened to that? Have you? Very interesting album, that. There's been a sequel to it as well, but I've got the first double album, Ray Davies' Trip Through the Heartland, and Americana, his experiences of America. It's a lovely record, actually, a lovely album. Very good. I highly recommend it. Hayden Hewitt's going to join me in about 90 seconds. If you've got any comment on 8chan, the dark web, censorship, these shootings, do tweet it to me. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. I'll be delighted to hear from you. This is Monday's programme. Got some interesting guests coming up throughout the week. I've got to say, Jim Fetzer was back in touch with me, and what a guy Jim is. I've known Jim for years, I tell you. And I said to him, Jim, I messed up. I gave you the wrong time. And that's the sort of thing, you see, that ordinarily happens around about that time when you need a break. This week is my last week before I take my holiday. I'm taking a holiday. So I'm taking 2 weeks. Next week and the week after I'm off, and I'm looking forward to a break, but I'm looking forward to the rest of this week. So I've got some terrific programs coming up. As I mentioned on tomorrow's program, Dean Henderson's got a fascinating new book out, and he joins me to talk about it live from Missouri, from the Ozarks, tomorrow on Tuesday's program. And I will get the diary out if I think of it before the end of the program, and let you know about some of the other guests who are coming up as well. Feel free to drop me a line through the website, richieallen.co.uk. If there's somebody you'd like me to invite onto the programme, let me know through the website. Where it is feasible, in terms of when I can contact the people, I will invite them on. Obviously, more likely to invite them on if they take a contrary position to some of my other guests. See, I like that. I like having people who come on with me whom I might have a disagreement with. It's good. It's good. It's healthy. It's good stuff, you see. So there's no harm in that. It's how we stand apart, isn't it? We like to speak with people. I was saying to Hayden, actually, before we get him on the programme today, that there was a time, and it's only a few years ago, when hardcore Zionists based in Israel were more than happy to come on my radio programmes to debate with me, to argue with me, to get heated with me about my opinions about Israel, or to take me on regarding what I believe to be true about Israel and how the state of Israel came to be. And they were happy to do that. But things have become so polarised, deliberately, of course, in recent years, that most of these people won't do it anymore. They won't come on. They won't come on. I remember back in our days on TBV in London, you might remember David Rubin, who's a hardcore Zionist, came on the programme to debate Gilad Atzmon. Two guys completely worlds apart in terms of their thinking, but they debated one another. But not anymore. It's the way it is. Anyway, enough of that. Coming up for 11 and a half minutes past the hour. My guest needs a little introduction to you, because most of you are familiar with and use the website liveleak.com. He's a co-founder of that. He's also the man behind triggerwarning.tv, and I do recommend you check out triggerwarning.tv and the YouTube channel for Trigger Warning, because he uploads his thoughts, very interesting programs regularly, along with Graham Booth, and they have a very interesting perspective on things, very challenging at times. So check it out, triggerwarning.tv. And I invited him on today because there has been obviously a narrow focus today on Tinternet and 8chan, some of these websites where apparently people go and talk about doing bad things and discuss doing bad things. And some of these websites allegedly cheerlead or celebrate some of the bad things that have happened in recent times, including the shootings in Dayton, Ohio, and the shooting in El Paso over the weekend. So let's talk about that and broaden this out with my old pal Hayden Hewitt, who stepped outside in the Manchester sunshine to chat with us. How you doing, pal?
I'm all right, mate. I'm inside, actually. Thanks for having me. I've had a terrible middle-class accident.
Go on.
I chipped a tooth on a wasabi pea. I've never felt so middle-class in my life.
Well, as a working class stooge, I wouldn't even know what a wasabi pea is. So
I know you'd only chip your teeth on pork scratchings and
pork
chicken
scratchings.
bones and things.
That's right. That's right. Well, I have no sympathy for you.
Pea. I've learned my lesson. It's
a bad day for teeth. The future Mrs. Allen is going to have a root canal done this week, and I lost a filling during a night out on Saturday night. I was getting very carried away at the barbecue I was at. Lost the filling. I've got to have it done on Friday morning. So it's a bad tooth week.
Why don't we just go get them all removed and get some lovely dentures?
Do you remember the old ways? You know this, of course, because you're a fan. You're a fan of history. You like to know about the history of where you came from. It was the done thing back in the day that young men, when they came of age, would have their teeth taken out under anaesthetic, and they would get a pair of Sears and Roebuck dentures.
Wise. See, we were wise in the old days.
Yeah.
We knew that as you grew older and your teeth grow brittle, don't worry about breaking them. Get rigged.
Get them out.
Get some nice plastic ones in there. You're fine. You can chew to your heart's content and just buy another set of ill-fitting dentures.
Get some out.
It's the way forward.
My granddad worked in a flour mill until his back was broken by doing it. And when he came of age in Waterford, in Ireland, same thing, yeah. Have them all out, Jerry. Have them all out, son. Go on, be a man about it. Be a man about it. Jesus, huh? But anyway, here we are. Shootings are terrible things.
Yes.
We're lucky. I suppose we're lucky in the sense that it's obviously not very likely. Fingers crossed. I know we had the Manchester Arena bombing. I know we've had shootings in London. Dreadful things. We're very interested. People like you and me, commentators and journalists, we're very interested in the response to these things. But listen, I'm not going to be putting words in your mouth or assuming the points of view that you have, because you always surprise me anyway. When you hear about these shootings in places like Dayton and El Paso, and you hear that people have been killed, what's the first thing? What do you think? I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, these things are commonplace.
There's one word that pops up every time. I was discussing this with Mrs. Hewitt, and the word that pops up is another
one
again. And obviously I have a lot of debates with Americans about this, and that often I wind them up about gun control and how they're not quite growing up enough to have them yet. But there's it's obviously not just the guns. There are other armed societies that don't have these problems. There's a very real and deep problem going on, and everyone's looking for a quick fix now. It's the guns, it's antidepressants, it's hormones, it's this, it's that, and each one of those things will never lead to a solution to this problem. I'm not even going into the people that start screaming false flag every time anything happens or anything else. There's obviously a toxic combination of things in the States that's causing a problem. And the issue, of course, is everyone wants to argue about which specific thing is causing it. Like Donald Trump came out, so it's video games. Ironic that they would look at the one thing there has been masses of research into, and there has been no evidence whatsoever of causation. None. I mean, zero. Correlation, but you can find correlation anywhere with anything.
Is there any evidence, Hayden, that people have become a bit desensitized? I know this is an old chestnut now that winds you up, but has desensitized to violence?
I think they have, because it does become another. It doesn't become, oh my God, what? Just what people of what? How many?
Yeah.
It just becomes another. Wow. And then when there were two within like 24 hours, sorry, my throat's still failing me here. When there were two within 24 hours, you're still there going, another
one.
That's how desensitized I've become. It's not that, I mean, online, if you watched the debates and discussions, as I love to do, I love to see how it evolves, and people were more concerned with finding the manifesto of the killer so they'd know who to blame. 24 people were dead. I think it was 24.
Yeah.
They were lying dead. A young mother was dead when someone tried to shoot her baby. People, human beings were dead, and all people wanted to do was, yeah, but who do I blame? Do I blame Trump or Antifa? Who do I blame? I want to blame somebody, which in part is also quite natural. We want to blame everyone for everything. We need someone to blame. That's where a lot of conspiracy theories come from as well, in my opinion. The need to hang it on a hook so that the world makes sense, so that we can find order in the chaos, and it's perfectly natural. But we've come to the point where it's like 24 is just a number. People become this dehumanized quantity of things, while we worry about, yeah, but was he left or right? That's what we need to know.
Or did he take inspiration from language used by his chosen party or leader of choice? Now that's interesting, right? Because,
and how do we alter society based on the beliefs and thoughts of lunatics? But that's what people want to do, isn't it? He listened to Donald Trump and went and shot Mexicans. It's Trump's fault.
Yeah.
Is it? He was mental. He was mental. It's like, the big thing where people go, did you know that all shooters are on antidepressants or whatever? Well, of course they are.
Many of them are, yeah. Yeah.
Well, of course they are. You don't suddenly become the sort of person that'll go out and slaughter a lot of people. You have a lot of problems leading up to it.
Now, you have again, I won't put words in your mouth. Delighted you're on, by the way. Thanks for giving me your time. I have sympathy with the theory that occasionally the intelligence agencies, the ones that we never hear of, will do something very, very, very bad because they want to create something out of it. They want to pursue a certain agenda. Maybe they want to bring in a bit more censorship. Maybe they want to introduce a bit more of a kind of a harsher policing regime. And I have a bit of sympathy with it. And I believe that it happens. But I don't think you've got any sympathy with that notion. Well, look, forget about the other day. But in general...
Do you know the problem is with me with that, I'll be honest with you, is that it doesn't seem to work very well, does it? They never seem to get what they want. They have to keep doing it. However, and this is no less evil, I do believe they capitalize on these things terribly. I believe they leap on them as an opportunity to not only bury other information, but to bring through ever more draconian legislation, the greatest gift.
Yeah. Well, I would say touche then, my friend. I would say touche. I would say, and I do not want to get into this because our listeners know that you and I have a fundamental disagreement here. There's no point in us bashing it out. Again, that's not to put words in Hayden's mouth, because I'm not saying that Hayden is not open-minded. I think he is very open-minded, but he comes to a different conclusion.
I've just not seen anything that leads me to agree with that conclusively at this point.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That's all, and that's where my beliefs lie.
Yeah,
and I don't believe it's any less evil to do what they do. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's they might as well go and pull the trigger, because they capitalise on these things terribly, and we've seen it time and time and time again, from the obvious ones like in 9/11, when they suddenly buried the news that someone lost $1 trillion or something down the back of the couch at the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And it happens in the UK. First thing, whenever there's something really bad, I always desperately look around to see what else has happened.
What else is going on?
What laws have been passed today? Because they're ideally, they're opportunists. They're not even predators, these people. They're like the Jekylls. They're the hyenas of our species, the opportunists. And I believe that they use everything, regardless of moral, because morality doesn't come into it, obviously, to do whatever it is they want to do. And I do believe that. I just don't believe a lot of the false flag thing, because a lot of it just wouldn't make a great deal of sense. However, if people do, that's up to them. I'm not here to tell people not to believe in something. It's not my job.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah. And you provide the space for those who do think differently to you.
Oh, yeah. People should think however they think.
Which is important, yeah. Because some of my listeners will be throwing things at their computers now. And
well, as long as they know that I fully support their rights.
Absolutely. It's important that people understand that. I see at times having discussions where you generally, I would say, it's unfair to say generally, you pretty much always behave respectfully to people, because, you know, they might be saying to you, all vaccines are bad or chemtrails are real, and you're saying, well, I don't agree with that, and people get irate about you not agreeing with them sometimes, and you generally say, look, they get very annoyed. That's my fault though, you see, because we're mates. They assume that you must have these opinions that I have, but of course you don't.
It's definitely your fault. I blame you for everything.
For everything. For all the bad things
that's wrong in my life is your fault.
For all the bad things. Hayden Hewitt is our guest. Triggerwarning.tv. Go to the YouTube channel. This is very important stuff, this now. 8chan then. What the bloody hell is this, eh?
Well, I did tweeted about this earlier, and I've never been a fan of the chans. Not for any particular reason. That the odd time I've looked at them, the format doesn't appeal to me. The content, I've never got it. It's not just a case of me being old now. I've never got it. It's never been for me, so I've never bothered. I did have a look at 8chan around the time of the Christchurch shooting, and I thought, it's a place full of shit posters. It's not for me. It's people that enjoy that sort of lulz culture and being outrageous and being horrific and whatever else, and that's fine.
Lots of boards, is it? I mean, how does it work? Like, there was a web address.
Anonymous message boards.
Anonymous message boards, right, okay.
It's like there used to be, I think it was on 4chan, there was B, where you could see just the most outrageous stuff, most horrific stuff. But it was all about trolling. And I know less about 8chan than I did about 4chan. I believe 8chan grew because 4chan was a little too regulated for some people, and they sort of went with 8chan. But what's happened today is everyone's saying they've been taken offline. They haven't. What's happened is Cloudflare, who provide DDoS protection, biggest company doing that, have said, we don't want to do business with you anymore, so we're withdrawing our service from you. And instantly this has turned into a deep state attack on Q.
Oh, right. Oh, Christ, yeah. There's a whole can of worms right there, yeah.
Oh, every time I talk about it, I just get battered. So
yeah.
Because I know that Q is a load of internet shit posters, and that's exactly what it is.
Of course it is.
I'm wrong. They're deeply in the government. They just can't quite tell you the truth yet.
Listen, you're wrong. Donald Trump is a one-man crusader against child abuse, and he never spent any time with Jeffrey Epstein. You are wrong.
He didn't like Jeffrey Epstein at all. He's come out and been quite clear about that. Never liked him. Apart from all those times I liked him.
Apart from all those times I was pictured with him and young girls, yeah.
Oh, mate, we touched on this in Trigger One. It was very difficult because it's like when he was found, in the fetal position in his cell. With
the ligature marks. With the ligature marks, yes.
Yeah, it's like, who would have believed that the man being accused of child sex trafficking, close personal friend of the royal family and the most powerful figures in the world politically, would have an accident in his jail cell? Come on.
Yeah.
Now, normally I'll poo-poo a lot of conspiracy theories, but dude, this one's got lights on. This is just, his life expectancy is not great, and I'm not going to mourn. I shed no tears for paedophiles. I don't care how they die.
Yeah.
But come on, he can't live through.
Yeah, but let's put a couple of jumper cables on his tits first before he does die and get some answers out of him. You know what I mean? Did Richie just advocate torture? No, I didn't. I'm joking. Don't freak out.
No, let's do Richie. In the case of somebody where it's proven and it's him and what he's done, I think a couple of jumper cables are probably okay.
you bad bastard, Hayden.
Well, sometimes you can't make an omelet
without breaking a few.
Without breaking some eggs.
Or without electrifying a few tits, fair enough.
I think we should break his eggs.
Jeffrey Epstein.
He's a terrible, terrible human being. There's no doubt about it.
He's rotten. He's absolutely rotten. And Ghislaine Maxwell has a lot of answers to give as well, and everybody else. That hung around with him.
And it all goes right the way through, doesn't it? From him to Prince Charles to Prince Andrew to Jimmy Savile to Trump to the Clintons. They were all hanging out with this guy. And for someone as prolific an offender as him, how can nobody have really known?
Well, they did know. Look, I know you. See, this is where we are kindred spirits until it comes to these junctures. And at this point, I depart, and I let you be the professional and the moderate. And I say, no.
Well, I'm not moderate. I'm saying, how could they not?
How could they not know? I mean, look, there's an abundance of evidence that the Clintons are up to their necks in disaster capitalism. Is that when you have a typhoon somewhere in the world, the Clintons and their friends go in there, not just to steal the natural resources of the region by putting their own NGOs and their own companies in there, but also to get access to children. I don't give a damn. For me, there's more than circumstantial evidence there. These people are the worst on planet Earth, but they all are, not just the Clintons.
Oh, it goes far deeper. It's dreadful. It's absolutely dreadful, and it's always been going on. It's always going to be going on, and we're never going to get to the bottom.
Never going to get to the bottom of now. So 8chan then. So this, you see, yes. you're educating me now. So a lot of the Q stuff was there.
Allegedly so. I mean, I didn't see much of that. Most of what I saw when I had a brief look around, because, keep in mind, it's not the sort of place I'd hang out for a terribly long time, because it just wasn't my culture. But, the shooters posted there, and some people would have accused them of play acting or LARPing. And, the truth is, on the internet, how would you ever know? You wouldn't know if someone was serious. Or someone was messing around and just LARPing about. You'd never know. So it's very difficult, but it's very easy now for everyone to go, well, you see, they posted there, they said they were going to do this. Well, no offense, I've seen people claim a lot of things on the internet. And are we now supposed to ban people based on fantasizing or talking nonsense or shitposting?
Well, Trump's statement was explicit. The one he gave this afternoon. I accused him in the monologue of basically coming off like a lefty progressive. Which he isn't, obviously, but the things he was saying, he might have been Owen Jones basically for 5 minutes. He was saying, I know it sounds ridiculous, but he was saying, we got to give the FBI the tools they want. We got to start shining a light on the internet. Hate speech. He mentioned hate. This is a big bone of contention with me. Hate speech is a misnomer. It's nonsense.
But Trump mentioning hate speech, this is the guy that laughed when someone at one of his rallies suggested shooting illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Come on. Yeah. Let's you got to be very careful throwing these stones when you're in all these glass houses. Very, very careful. But it's like I say, he's been blaming video games for the shooters. They'll blame the internet because why not?
Do you not agree with me that when the police, whichever police force it happens to be, when they approach a lectern and they present the assembled journalists with, right, he put a manifesto, and the media, our media, and I know you hold them in as much contempt as I do, they say, lovely, thanks very much there, that's a nice little bow you put on that. Now look, I don't have to say this to you because we've known each other too long. I'm not for a minute suggesting that these guys didn't commit these shootings. I'm working on the premise that they did. But what I'm saying is, the media does nothing. It says, all right then,
well,
thanks.
You don't have to now. Those manifestos don't even come through the police. That's the thing. They're dug up by other internet users. Now, I know people, if you really conspiratorial, but those internet users, but you can trace who these people are back, and they just come out because they're posted publicly. They're not hidden. They're not passed to anybody. The police don't discover them. It's like journalists these days. You know as well as I do. For every person in that industry who's genuine and real and at it, the other 10 wake up in the morning and look at Twitter and decide what to outrage people about today. Oh, there's 3 people posted about that. We can turn that into some outrage. And that's how most of it works. You read it on the Independent, for the shame of me. I follow them because it just entrances me. People outraged on the internet about this, and I've been and looked, and there's been like 20 comments.
20 comments, yeah, it's a big deal.
It's like, that's not a great cross-section. Twitter isn't a great cross-section of the public, but it's often represented as one. But it isn't one. So when the police come out and go, we got his manifesto, it's like, yeah, dude, we know, we read it 18 hours ago. It's already out. It's already out there, and everyone that wanted it would have found it. But the journalists, what do they care now? They've been given the manifesto, or they've found it online. I've been watching journalists on Twitter trading, images and pictures from the shootings and things like that. And they're happy. They've got the story. They've got it all covered. They don't have to dig. Why dig?
Yeah.
Why dig? It's there.
And digging is important, because it's important to ask why a young man with... I know the guy, Connor, who apparently he was shot dead, of course, in Dayton, Ohio, and he's been named as the man who shot those people, Connor Betts, and they shot him dead. So apparently he was known, or should have been known, to the authorities there, because when he was in high school, he was expelled effectively because he had talked openly about raping people and killing people he didn't like.
He had a list, didn't he? He had a list of people he wanted to kill.
And that's quite strange that the media wouldn't follow that up.
Yeah, and also, it just seems like, and people only want the superficial information. Like I say, who were they? What colour were they? What were their politics? That'll do. We don't need anything else. All I need is enough information for me to continue my argument.
Yes,
that's what it is, Richie. I just need. Well, I'm on the left. I need the information so I can hit out the right. No, I don't care about anything else. Just give me the important things. Was he a Trump supporter?
Yeah.
That's what people want. It's all narcissism. It's about what I can use to get one up on somebody else, even temporarily. It's like whataboutery is so rife now.
Whataboutery, yeah.
It's horrific. It's horrific now, because it's all. I can't say anything about Trump without someone mentioning Hillary. And I can't say anything about Hillary without someone mentioning Trump. It's like, can't we ever discuss one thing?
It's so successful now. I mean, I've said this on the show, I was heartened in the last part of the last decade that people were turning away from it, that they were seeing through it. But the advent of Trump and crooked Hillary and the populists around Europe seem to have re-engaged people with the whole process. Do you see that yourself?
It's repulsive, and it's everyone's pushing that way, and everyone's just biting into it. It's like, I was talking to you earlier today.
Yeah,
I think it's okay for the listeners to know that we chat.
We do chat occasionally, yeah.
Quite often. And I said, for years I lost my purpose. Genuinely lost my purpose for years. I didn't know what it was I really wanted. When we started Live Leaker, when I was working with Ogrish, and I knew what my goals were. But they became more and more diluted as it became more and more difficult, and other things distracting you. And it's only recently that I found it, and it's what brought it home. This is absolutely genuine. Is the profound loss of the promise we had with the internet.
Yeah, this is really important.
The way we could converse on there, the way we existed before being manipulated and managed and controlled and encouraged into bubbles. And everyone out there listening, and I include myself and Richie in this, and this is true, this is gospel, you will believe that you are too strong to be manipulated. You will believe that, they'd never catch me. But trust me, if you are using the major social media platforms, or if you listen to anyone without questioning them, anyone, you are being manipulated. 100%, and we could do so much more. And I've decided that although doomed to failure as it is, and it really is, all I care about now is encouraging. If I can encourage 10 people, 20 people, do it for yourself. Here's some tools. Here's how to do it. Here's a helping hand. Here's a stepping stone. Give up on these massive empty numbers on YouTube. I got 20,000 views from a video on somebody else's platform who controls you.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Because we all do it. You change your content because, if I put this out, I'm going to get screwed.
That's very important you're saying that. I wonder, we haven't even gotten into this on this program. How has the monetization thing and then the demonetization by Google of YouTube videos, what sort of impact has it had on the editorial of people's? It must be massive. I haven't considered it. You brought it up.
100%. It's worked so perfectly. Google introduced something that was unsustainable, which was the monetization deal that they offered. But they knew if they ran that, they would destroy all competition, because only Google had the pockets deep enough to make this happen. They knew that advertisers were going to pull away. They didn't care because it gave them complete market control. And even better, and Facebook are equally guilty of this with their pages, they made people dependent on them. People abandoned their own sites. People abandoned trying to start something themselves and went, well, I can just do it here. It's dead easy. I just upload my videos and they take care of all the hosting and they take care of the bandwidth. And look, they're giving me money and it's brilliant. I'm dependent on them. I'm paying my rent with them. What do you mean my money's gone? Oh, shit, what am I doing wrong? Oh, I'm not allowed to talk about that. Oh, okay. Well, shit, I need that money now. I'm dependent on them. It's the dealer thing, you know? Sure, I'll sell your heroin £2 a bag to you, mate. Oh, you need it now. £10 a bag. You know, oh, you're going to have to do some favours for me. And that's the position that we're at. We have been manipulated en masse by these major platforms to abandon everything good and everything we hope for and all the freedom and all the opportunity that the internet allowed. Even net neutrality has become some kind of dirty communist idea to too many people, without realizing that at the heart of net neutrality is the protection that you would be able to succeed without or in spite of the corporations. And we've lost it all because we want convenience, because we're lazy consumers. And I say we, because I'm
it's the big we.
As everybody else.
Yeah, it's the royal we. I understand you.
I'm not above anybody. I'm no more insightful than anybody else. I'm not special. I've looked into some great scenarios. I've paid for it accordingly, you know, and made the same mistakes and done all these things. But the only difference is I don't want to control people. I really want to empower people. And I want people to get off their ass and be creative. You know, but don't rely on anybody else. You know, don't build your entirety on a platform that doesn't care about you. Use tools that are available, but don't become dependent on them.
What happens now? It's important I jump in here because this is really important stuff. Hayden Hewitt is our guest. Go to triggerwarning.tv if you haven't before. Hayden's the co-founder of liveleak.com. Hugely important website over the years. I found it personally. I couldn't have done without it over the years, making radio and television programs, because of the information I came across on LiveLeak that would have been banned elsewhere. It's an amazing website. Right. Now, this is all well and good, and I think it's brilliant what you're saying and the advice you're giving people. But the censorship that we're seeing as a result of things that happened, as a result of things like Dayton, Ohio and El Paso, surely is going to result in those who host websites being basically coerced into not hosting certain websites.
I mean, there are a couple of aspects here. Okay, obviously there's the free speech absolutionist, which in theory is a lovely idea. Is often the person with the anonymous username that wants you to take the risks for them.
Yeah.
They won't take the risks themselves. They're saying, well, you should give me absolute freedom to say whatever I want. Oh, risk? No, I don't want any of that. Actually, thank you. I don't want to be identifiable. I could get in trouble.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose money, but I'd like you to do it for me. There's a problem there. There is no free speech absolutionist, but every platform should be able to set its own rules. But there are people. I can't go into it too much. I'm still not knowledgeable enough. I've only had a couple of online meetings with a couple of guys who are very much at the forefront of this. But technology is moving to a point where even if the domain name services decided you were to vanish, they would not be able to do it. Decentralization is a thing. It is happening. But, with the absolutionists, where we are now as opposed to what's coming next, for example, on Trigger Warning, we're just about to open it where it'll be like WordPress.com. You can have your own blog there. And it's all, hey, no, you're just being a platform. It's like, yeah, we're going to give people a hand. You can develop your thing. And if you want to go off and take it on your own, we'll help you with it and salute you and run it up the flagpole. Go for it. And there's some very simple rules on Trigger Warning.
I was just going to ask you, what are your red lines then?
Obviously nothing illegal. We don't want any child porn. We don't want any crush videos. We don't want people inciting others into harmful actions.
By the way, you mentioned crush videos this morning. It's funny you mentioned it twice in one day. There were some stories about people doing unspeakable things to animals for for fetishists. You've mentioned it again. Is that still seriously a problem? That?
Oh yeah, no. Something popped up. It was some kind of. It used to be, they call them sex workers now, don't they?
Yeah.
We used to call them something else, but it's not politically correct. But we call them cam whores. But okay, sex workers. One of them was tried to reinvent herself as, you know, woman of the people, which is slipping back into one. Turns out she did some crush videos with shellfish, I don't know, and some other things. It's all equally repulsive.
Yeah.
But what got me was not that she did it. We've all done, I guess, bad things for money. I don't know. I personally never trod on animals, so someone else can have a tug over it. But what do I know? Not that I'd probably be the ideal person that they'd want to do that anyway.
Maybe not, but...
But what got me was the other sex workers flocking to defend her, and I had to pull up a couple going, well, do you realise what you're saying here? Because they were saying, well, what does it matter? You know, if you eat animals, you're a hypocrite. It's like, yeah, animals have to die to feed me meat, but I tend to prefer it when they've not been killed by someone in fetish gear, so some guy can sit at home having some quality personal time to it.
Yeah.
It's the little details in life that count. So that's
they
just
do
on my radar, but obviously animal cruelty, stuff like that,
and obviously child porn. But outside of that, people are expressing opinions because it's interesting, you know.
No incitement. You know, there is a line. Obviously, someone's saying, you know, I don't like black people. Well, they're ignorant, and it's nothing to do with me. If it's I don't like black people, and I think we should go and hang them all, so hang on a minute. This gets to be a problem. Now, if people don't like the rules, that's cool. There's a million other sites. But they're all laid out, and we actually have a charter on trigger warning as well now, which spells out exactly why you will not be removed.
Now, hang on a second. My listeners, their ears are pricking up as we speak, because Hayden Hewitt, who I have to say, not because he's on with me today, whenever I speak about Hayden, it's not that often that I speak about him, but when I'm in company with other journalists or other media types, I often bring him up because he is very much a champion of people's right to think and to say what it is they really feel, even if it's something he is fundamentally opposed to. He's a rare breed like that. That this is a problem, you see, that he's a rare breed. He should be he should be the norm, but he isn't. He's very rare. So here's the question then. A lot of my listeners, a lot of them, believe that nobody should ever be vaccinated, ever, full stop, with any vaccines. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm just saying that's what they think. I have other listeners that take a more kind of plaintive or more moderate approach to that, and they say that, yeah, I think vaccines or vaccine as a principle is something that can work, but I am concerned with the kind of cowboy attitude that some companies have to testing their vaccines. I'm a bit worried about that. And then I presume I have other listeners who think vaccines are okay. What's going to happen is, and we've seen this in media, in media like Sky, like BBC, like Channel 4, they're going to start telling social media companies to delete accounts of people who recommend that you don't vaccinate, full stop.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I was about to say...
And that's going to come up with you then.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you tell people not to vaccinate, okay, and a lot of the people are that confident they will do that. But let me tell you this. If you tell someone not to, and then someone loses a child to, let's say, the complications of measles, whether you believe it's related or not, if you tell someone not to vaccinate and someone dies, that's on you. Now, what I believe is you should have the right to say, I don't believe in vaccination. I think it's bullshit, and here's why. Brilliant.
Yeah.
The minute you tell someone else not to do it, you're culpable. It's like we had this discussion about someone we both know that linked to an article.
What about free will, though? I mean, I never have done because...
Have free will. You know, that's yours. Don't tell other people.
No, that's what I meant, but yeah, like, for example, let me give you an example. And I'll shut up and get out of your way. Let me give you an example. I would have said one time, because I know there'll be listeners now frantically trying to tweet me or email me to call me a liar. I'm not a liar. But I would at one time have said that, and this is how I would have phrased it, I have no doubt that there is a problem with the HPV Gardasil vaccine. I have no doubt. Too many girls have had this horrendous, debilitating, life-draining sickness having taken it. But that doesn't mean that other vaccines are not safe or whatever. So I would have said at one time, if I had a daughter, I would have said if I had a daughter, I'd be screaming from the rooftops that she's not going to have it, which is kind of around, but that's a roundabout way of saying to people, don't have the vaccine.
I'm telling you, I'm just suggesting to your listeners, if they want to enjoy freedom, you have to work it, whether they like it or not. I know we're all so entitled, we think we should just have what we want.
Yeah.
But if you want to be able to voice any opinion, and I believe that you should, I think you have to start being a little more responsible for how you voice it. Because you and I both know that the majority of anti-vaxxers would not go, well, you know, there's this evidence with the Gardasil vaccine, which any right-minded person would be very concerned about and want to know more about.
Yeah.
But they never do it that way. It always goes further. It turns into an attack. It turns into something more that can't be quite so easily proven. Therefore, whether they like it or not, destroying the argument that is entirely reasonable, which the argument that's reasonable, by the way, is why did all these girls get ill?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But you know what, Hayden? There's a group of mothers in Ireland who have a group called Regret. I know we're segueing now. But those women have never tolerated this idea of anti-vaxxers. They're only concerned about their own daughters. And they've had to put up with stuff from the Irish government and from certain academics that is absolutely appalling. They've been accused of child abuse and everything. Horrendous. Now, they're not attacking people online. They're saying, what the fuck is wrong with our daughters? No, I know you're not. I know you're not. But I want to mention them. I'm telling
everybody out there that we live in a time where just thinking you're entitled to be able to say whatever you want is a very bad idea.
Yeah.
What you have to do is think about how you are saying it. How are you getting your message across? How are you conveying it? Because like it or not...
Is that self-censorship?
There's a game. Oh, it's not censorship. That's the thing.
Self-censorship, I mean.
Your idea. For example, if you're one of these people who is racist, and we get them on Live Leak, and we've said no racial slurs.
Yeah.
Because it's too easy to be attacked for.
Fair enough, yeah.
Now, I believe, personally, racism is massively ignorant, pointless, stupid, and futile.
Yeah.
And the realm of the moron. However, if someone believes that, I can't stop them. But if they can't convey their opinion without so easily giving ammunition to those that would destroy us, then what are we even doing? You're not censoring your idea. You're presenting it in a manner that is harder to argue against. That's not censorship. If you want to convey you don't like black people, you could say, I don't like black people because, but is your argument improved by using the N-word?
Yeah.
So what I'm suggesting is not I only use that as the most extreme and simple example. What I'm suggesting is if you've got an opinion that you need to put across, Lord knows in the point of racism that we don't need it, but it's yours. So I don't mean yours personally, but the other yours is fine. Think about what you're doing. Because the minute you start just attacking and going off on massive tangents, you're opening the door to whoever you perceive as your enemy.
Yeah.
To silence you. Everyone needs to be that little bit smarter. And a lot of sites that I know, the rules are there to protect your ability to voice your opinion. And if they're asking you to watch your language, it's not because they want to tell you what to do. It's because a lot of us know that at some point, you're going to give them enough ammunition to take this
to pull the plug. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with a journalist, an Irish journalist who I've known for many years, and I had a conversation with him. It must have been 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago. We're having a chat about it, and he would be very sympathetic to your point of view. And he was asking me. He said, Richie, one of the things he said, he was listening back to some programs that I did on commercial radio years ago when I was interviewing various people. And he said, I was listening to you, Richie. And he said, you were obviously very raw at the time because you were young and you were starting out, you were a bit raw. But he said, there was a lovely phrase. Not only did you use it, but people use it. And the phrase was, it could be argued that. So I can have a discussion with you. And I do not agree with your point of view. But I don't want to end up having a shouting match with you. And I don't want to end up falling out with you over something that really isn't that important in our lives. I want to maintain my friendship. So rather than say, you're wrong, Hewitt, you're wrong, you're fucking wrong, you're stupid, you say, I'll tell you what, Hayden, interesting, but it could be argued that. And he said this to me, and I was like, yeah, that's right. We used to talk like that. We used to listen to people with whom we disagreed with and genuinely did listen and then say, well...
That's what we do.
That's what we do, yeah.
That's how we converse, but we're not special.
No, we're not, but we're the exception now.
To be that way online. It's because people are encouraged. People are also starting to talk in real life like they do on the internet, which in my opinion is one way of getting you a fat lip on a cauliflower ear quicker than anything else.
Do you know whose fault that is? You're not going to believe this. I was reading the Lefty Guardian this morning. I love saying that. The Lefty Guardian. It's no longer lefty. No such thing. But anyway, I was reading the Guardian. Trini and Susanna are to blame for it.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, some local academic looked back at when television began to get very confrontational, where presenters began to speak in a kind of a different way to members of the public, when they began to be very critical of them in ways that we'd never seen before. Because previously, as Hayden will know, as a TV man himself, when people went on television many years ago, the presenters felt that they had to protect the innocent, everyday citizen, the pleb, who is obviously not used to TV, so we have to be very, very careful with them and treat them with kid gloves. Around about Trini and Susanna time, it became fashionable, Jerry Springer as well, to be very rude to people who were basically ordinary folks like me, ordinary folks, and it was a fascinating article. You should read it. And apparently that discourse, that aggressive, kind of hostile discourse, the Guardian journalist argues, has bled into public discourse.
Unless they were just symptomatic of the way things are going.
Maybe.
But I've never really watched Trini and Suzanne, but what a pair of bastards.
What a pair of bastards. They changed everything. Yeah, apparently it's a program where they dressed people.
But the thing is, I'm not averse to being rude to people. It's usually if someone's rude to me first or particularly idiotic, I say whatever I feel. But there's very rarely any malice in it. As you know, I don't take anything that seriously when it comes to that. But online, it's people's default position now. Now, some will say it's always been that way, but you know what? It hasn't.
No, it hasn't. You're right.
It genuinely hasn't. And, you know, people also knew you could just have a wind-up. Trolling can just be fun. Everyone's so precious and serious and entitled and narcissistic now. Yeah. And I really do put that at the door of social media. It's an engineering thing. Keep everyone in a bubble where they're most complacent, surrounded by people that agree with them. They get all the affirmation, the thumbs up, they feel better. What's better than 10,000 followers?
Yeah.
And it all means nothing because they don't really care.
It means nothing. It's nonsense.
And then if anyone challenges your ideas, you can all attack them at once. And nowadays it's even better because you can have them deleted. You can have them cancelled.
If you don't like them, yeah.
You can cancel your social media, we can cancel your website, we can cancel your career, we can cancel your life because we don't like you and I've decided you're a Nazi. You know, it's what's going on?
Yeah. And you know what? You made a very good point. It obviously wasn't the way it used to be because there was a time when the only way to speak to somebody was face to face or on the telephone. And back then, obviously when you're speaking to somebody face to face, you can't swear at them and call them a paedophile. Or you can't swear at them and call them an F and this because you'll get chinned. You know, you might get a dig.
I've seen that with live league meetups. You know, I've been to a couple and they've been very, very nice. But there's always been a couple of people that historically have had disagreements with me. But, you know, in real life, it's never quite like that, is it?
No, it isn't. No, that's right.
Safety of the keyboard. We all change a little, whether we like it or not. But we just all need to take a step back. We all need to take a step back and realise, you know, just because this is our opinion, we might not actually be right.
Absolutely.
And if we don't listen to other people, particularly those who disagree with us, we cannot learn, we cannot grow, we cannot evolve, we stay stale. And believe me, a pat on the back from your 10 friends who agree with you means nothing compared to a lucid conversation with someone who disagrees with you.
Absolutely right, where you're listening hard to what you're being told and not actually thinking of what you're going to say next. I've always said that to people when I used to do City and Guilds media training. When the person you're speaking to is speaking, don't sit there thinking of what you're going to say next. Listen to him. You might learn something, you know.
Well, I think listening's a lost art.
Of course it is.
And, you know, this is just where we're at. You know, I always feel like a terrible old man when I talk like this. And
it's true.
I'm about to start saying, I used to be able to leave your back door open.
Yeah, that's right. Key in the front door, yeah.
There were only 3 channels on telly and only one of them was on all day, you know. And I don't want to be that man, but that's the way I'm going. I'm 47 this year. I'm ancient and broken. But I think I've still got one last hurrah to give a shot.
Well, keep us informed of that. We're going to close down this today. You're back on tomorrow night with Graham, aren't you? Tomorrow night, Tuesday.
I should be. I think I might be doing a surprise podcast later with a chap from America. I'm not sure yet. But we're definitely back tomorrow night. We weren't last week because I couldn't speak. But we're back tomorrow night, 10:30 on youtube.com/triggered warning TV.
Yeah, it's very funny and it's very interesting.
Podcast, and then we got the big show on Thursday. So
thanks for your time today. It's fascinating to hear that.
Always a pleasure.
I'd love to get in. I'd love in the autumn to get into your theory about how social crediting will be rolled out and policed by corporations. That's brilliant. I think.
Absolutely.
Let's get into that in the autumn, right? Because that's really important stuff.
Look forward to it, mate.
Great to know you, pal. Thanks for everything you do for everybody else, and your commitment to promoting free speech and free thought, even for those with whom you agree with. I really diametrically oppose
stupid people.
Even with stupid people, right?
Thanks for having me, Richie.
You're welcome, pal. Enjoy the rest of your evening. The great Hayden Hewitt there live on your Richie Allen Show. That's it for the programme, by the way. Thanks again to Hayden. Great stuff. Jim Fetzer will join me on Wednesday. I messed up big tonight. You messed up big, mister. I gave Jim the wrong time, and I know Jim's been looking very closely at what happened in El Paso and in Dayton, Ohio, but he will be on the programme on Wednesday. I've got to go because it's time to go. Thanks to you for listening. We'll do it all again tomorrow, Tuesday at 5 p.m. Before that, though, I'll speak to you in the morning for the newspaper review at 9:30 on YouTube. Bye now.